of Sri Aurobindo from the book The Mother, Part 2, Letters on the Mother by Our Lord, Chapter 9, The Mother and the Working of the Ashram. Topic: The Mother and the Ashram's Discipline. Page 229, New Stanza. Sri Aurobindo says, I do not find that mother is a rigid disciplinarian. On the contrary, I have seen with what a constant leniency, tolerant patience, and kindness she has met the huge mass of indiscipline, disobedience, self-assertion, revolt that has surrounded her, even revolt to her very face, and violent letters overwhelming her with the worst kind of vituperation. A rigid disciplinarian would not have treated these things like that. I do not know what ill treatment visitors have received, apart from the insistence on rules of which you complain. But it cannot be a great complaint. Otherwise, the number of visitors would not be constantly increasing, nor would so many people want to come back again, or even come every time, or so many want to stay on if the mother allowed them. After all, they do not come here on the basis of a social occasion, but for darshan of those whom they regard to be spiritually great, or in the case of constant visitors, for a share in the life of the ashram, and for spiritual advantage, and for both of these motives one would expect them to submit willingly to the conditions imposed and not to mind a little inconvenience. Sri Aurobindo continues to say, as regards Golconda and its rules, they are not imposed elsewhere. There is a reason for them, and they are not imposed for nothing. In Golconda, Mother has worked out her own idea through Raymond, Seymour, and others. First, Mother believes in beauty as a part of spirituality and divine living. Secondly, she believes that physical things have the divine consciousness underlying them as much as living things. And thirdly, that they have an individuality of their own and ought to be properly treated, used in the right way, not misused or improperly handled or hurt or neglected, so that they perish soon and lose their full beauty of value. She feels the consciousness in them and is so much in sympathy with them that what in other hands may be spoilt or wasted in a short time lasts with her for years or decades. It is on this basis that she planned the Golconda. First, she wanted a high architectural beauty, and in this she succeeded. Architects and people with architectural knowledge have admired it with enthusiasm as a remarkable achievement. One spoke of it as the finest building of its kind he had seen, with no equal in all Europe or America, and a French architect, pupil of a great master, said it executed superbly the idea which his master had been seeking for but failed to realize. But also she wanted all the objects in it, the rooms, the fitting, the furniture, to be individually artistic and to form a harmonious whole. This, too, was done with great care. Moreover, each thing was arranged to have its own use. For each thing there was a place, and there should be no mixing up or confused or wrong use. But All this had to be kept up and carried out in practice. For it was easy for people living there to create a complete confusion and misuse and to bring everything to disorder and ruination in a short time. That was why the rules were made and for no other purpose. The mother hoped that if right people were accommodated there or others trained to a less rough and ready living than is common, her idea could be preserved and the wasting of all the labor and expense
avoided.
Unfortunately, the crisis of accommodation came and we were forced to house people in Golconda who could not be accommodated elsewhere, and a careful choice could not be made. So often there was damage and misuse, and the mother had to spend 200 to 300 rupees after darshan to repair things and restore what had been realized. Y has taken the responsibility of the house and of keeping things right as much as possible. That was why she interfered in the handbag affair. It was as much a tragedy for the table as for the doctor, for it got scratched and spoiled by the handbag and tried to keep both the bag and shaving utensils in the places that had been assigned for them. If I had been in the doctor's place, I would have been grateful to her for her care and solicitude instead of being upset by what ought to have been for him trifles, although because of her responsibility they had for her their importance. Anyhow, this is the rationale for the rules, and they do not seem to me to be meaningless regulation and discipline. Sri Aurobindo continues to say, finally, about financial arrangements. It has been an arduous and tiring work for the mother and myself to keep up this ashram with its ever increasing numbers, to make both ends meet, and at times to prevent deficit budgets and their results. Especially in this wartime, when the expenses have climbed to a dizzy and fantastic height, only one accustomed to these things or who had similar responsibilities can understand what we have gone through. Carrying on anything of this magnitude without any settled income could not have been done if there had not been the working of a divine force. Works of charity are not part of our work. There are other people who can see to that. We have to spend all the work we have taken in hand, and what we get is nothing compared to what is needed. We cannot undertake things that would bring in money in the ordinary ways. We have to use whatever means are possible. There is no general rule that spiritual men must do works of charity or they should receive and care for whatever visitors come or house and feed them. If we do it, it is because it has become part of our work. The mother charges visitors for accommodation and food because she has expenses to meet and cannot take money out of air. She charges, in fact, lesser than her expense. It is quite natural that she should not like people to take advantage of her and allow those who try to make meals in the dining room under false pretenses. Even if they are few at first, yet if this were allowed, a few would soon become a legion. As for people being allowed to come in freely for darshan without permission, which would soon convert me into a thing for show and an object of curiosity, often critical or hostile curiosity, it is I who would be the first to cry, "Stop!" I have tried to explain our standpoint and have gone to some length to do it. Whether it is agreed or not, at any rate, it is a standpoint. and I think a rational one. I am writing only on the surface. I do not speak of what is behind or from the yogic standpoint and the standpoint of the yogic consciousness from which we act. That would be more difficult to express. This is merely for intellectual satisfaction, and there is always room for dispute. Date 25th Feb 1945. It is very true, says Sri Aurobindo. It is very true that physical things have a consciousness within them which feels and responds to care and is sensitive to careless touch and rough handling. To know or feel that and learn to be careful of them is a great progress of consciousness. It is always so that the mother has felt and dealt with physical things and they remain with her much longer and in a better condition than with others and give their full use. Date 16th April 1936.